Tonight, we are going to leave the modern world behind. Before we begin our journey, I want you to take a deep, slow breath. Feel the weight of your body pressing into your mattress. Let your shoulders drop, relax your jaw, and let the tension of the day fade into the shadows of your room. Imagine the soft hum of a fan or the distant whistle of the wind acting as your guide. We are traveling back in time, far away from the glowing screens and the hum of electricity, to a place where the silence was vast and the stars were the only lanterns in the sky. We are going to explore the real Wild West of the 1870s, not the one you've seen in the movies, but the gritty, difficult, and profoundly quiet reality of those who lived it. As you close your eyes, imagine you are waking up in a small, hand-hewn wooden cabin on the edge of the American frontier. The year is 1872. The first thing that hits you isn't the light, but the smell. In our modern world, we forget how pungent life used to be. There is no scent of lavender or fresh laundry here. Instead, the air is heavy with the smell of wood smoke, unwashed wool, animal droppings, and the damp, earthy scent of the soil itself. Bathing is a rare luxury, something done perhaps once a month in a cramped tin tub with water hauled by hand from a distant creek. You feel the scratchy texture of your straw-filled mattress beneath you, and as you stretch, your muscles ache with a deep, chronic fatigue. This is the reality of the frontier. Every movement is a product of physical labor. There are no machines to help you. Your body is your only tool, and out here, it is used until it breaks. You sit up and reach for your clothes. They are made of rough canvas and heavy wool, stiff with dried sweat and mended dozens of times. You don't just put on your boots. You pick them up and shake them out first, a vital habit born of necessity to ensure no scorpion or rattlesnake has sought warmth inside them during the night. The floor beneath your feet is made of packed dirt, cold and unforgiving. As you move toward the small cast iron stove to start a fire, you realize that the average lifespan here is barely 35 years. It isn't just the violence that claims people. It is the sheer, grinding weight of daily survival. Breakfast is the same as it was yesterday, and the same as it will be tomorrow. You reach for a tin cup of coffee, but it wouldn't be recognized by anyone today. It is a bitter, black liquid made from beans stretched with roasted chicory or acorns, boiled until it is thick and pungent. You eat a piece of salt pork and a hard biscuit, knowing that fresh fruit is a seasonal dream. Scurvy is a quiet ghost that haunts these cabins, loosening teeth and weakening bones because the diet is so profoundly limited. There are no grocery stores with overflowing aisles. There is only what you could grow. As you step outside, the vastness of the landscape swallows you. The horizon seems to go on forever, a sea of grass and sagebrush under a sky so blue it feels heavy. If you were to travel to the nearest town, you wouldn't find a cinematic paradise. You would find a collection of false front wooden buildings huddled together against the wind. The streets are not paved. They are either clouds of choking dust or rivers of thick, black mud mixed with animal waste. Thousands of flies swarm the hitching posts, and the air carries the metallic tang of the blacksmith's forge mixed with the stench of open sewers. In this town, you might pass the saloon, the center of social life. But inside, there is no glamour. The whiskey served is a raw, toxic grain alcohol, sometimes colored with tobacco juice or spiked with gunpowder to give it a kick that could literally blind a man. Violence here isn't a choreographed duel at high noon. It is messy, impulsive, and usually fueled by this rot gut liquor. Most shootings are backshots in dark alleys or drunken brawls over a game of cards. Interestingly, you notice a sign posted on a rail. All firearms must be checked with the sheriff. Contrary to the legends, many frontier towns had stricter gun control than modern cities, desperate to stop the impulsive bloodshed that threatened their growth. If you fell ill in this town, the doctor's office would offer little comfort. Medical science in the 1870s is a terrifying landscape of trial and error. There are no antibiotics, no sterile rooms, and very little understanding of germs. A simple infected scratch from a rusty nail can lead to a fever that ends your life in days. Surgery is a brutal affair. If a limb is crushed or badly broken, the saw is the primary tool of the trade. Women face even greater risks. Childbirth is a perilous journey that claims 1 in 4 mothers in remote areas. For many, a trip to the doctor is a final resort, as the cures, often involving mercury or arsenic, are sometimes deadlier than the disease. Now, imagine leaving the town behind and joining the great migration westward. You are one of the thousands walking beside a covered wagon on the Oregon Trail. You aren't riding inside the wagon. It is too full of the 2,000 pounds of supplies needed to survive the 6-month journey. You are walking 2,000 miles across the continent, through dust that clogs your lungs and heat that blisters your skin. This trail is a winding graveyard. For every mile you travel, there are an average of 10 graves. Most people didn't die from conflict with Native Americans. They died from cholera. You could be perfectly healthy in the morning, and by sunset, the bacteria from contaminated water would have drained the life from your body. Families are forced to bury their loved ones in shallow graves in the middle of the trail, driving their wagons directly over the site to level the earth and protect the body from wolves. There is no time to mourn. The mountains must be crossed before the first snows of October, or the entire wagon train will perish in the cold. The diversity of the people you see on this trail might surprise you. The frontier was a meeting ground for the entire world. You see black cowboys. 1 in 4 riders on the cattle trails was an African American man seeking a life where his skill with a horse mattered more than the color of his skin. You see Mexican vaqueros, the true masters of the ranching world, whose clothing and techniques provided the blueprint for the American cowboy. You see Chinese immigrants, working in the blistering heat and freezing cold to build the Transcontinental Railroad, often assigned the most dangerous jobs with explosives that claimed thousands of lives. There are Irish, German, and Scandinavian families, all carrying the remnants of their old worlds in small wooden trunks, hoping to find a piece of land they can finally call their own. But this expansion came at a catastrophic cost. As you look across the plains, you see the remnants of the great buffalo herds. Once numbering 60 million, they are being slaughtered by the millions, not just for their hides, but as a deliberate government policy to starve the Native American tribes into submission. For the indigenous people, the Wild West was not a frontier of opportunity, but the end of a world. You see the tragedy of tribes being pushed onto reservations, their children taken to boarding schools to strip them of their language and culture. The conflict was not a simple story of cowboys and Indians, but a complex, heartbreaking struggle of displaced nations trying to survive an unstoppable tide of settlers. The women of the frontier lived a life of unimaginable endurance. Far from being helpless, they were the backbone of the homestead. A woman on the plains might spend her day plowing fields, tending livestock, and defending her home, all while raising children in total isolation. Many lived in sod houses, homes built literally of stacked earth and grass because there were no trees for lumber. These houses were dark, damp, and prone to prairie madness, a psychological breakdown caused by the endless wind and the crushing silence of the plains. A woman might go 6 months without seeing another person besides her husband and children. The loneliness was a physical weight, as heavy as the buckets of water she had to haul from the well every day. If you turned your attention to the industries of the West, you would find even more danger. In the mining towns of Nevada or Colorado, men work in dark, unstable shafts hundreds of feet below the earth. Cave-ins are common, and black damp, toxic gas, can suffocate a crew in minutes without warning. In the cattle industry, the legendary long drive was 20 hours a day of grueling, dusty work. A stampede could be triggered by a single bolt of lightning or a snapped twig, sending thousands of pounds of panicked muscle and horn charging through a camp, trampling anything in its path. For all this risk, a cowboy might earn only $30 a month, most of which was spent on basic survival. As the 1870s progressed, the wild began to fade. The arrival of the railroad changed everything. What once took 6 months by wagon now takes 6 days by train. The isolation began to crack as the telegraph brought news of the outside world in minutes rather than months. Corporate interests, large mining companies and cattle syndicates, began to swallow up the small, independent operators. The frontier was being integrated into the modern world, fenced off with barbed wire and regulated by distant governments. The era of the lone explorer was ending, replaced by the era of the industrial laborer. Yet, despite the hardship, the dirt, and the danger, there was a profound beauty that stayed with those who lived there. As the sun begins to set in your mind, imagine the sky turning into a canvas of deep purples and burning oranges. Without the light pollution of the modern world, the stars emerge with a brilliance that is almost overwhelming. The Milky Way stretches across the sky like a river of silver light, so bright it casts soft shadows on the ground. This was the one luxury the frontier provided, a direct, unfiltered connection to the cosmos. The nation began to crack as the telegraph brought news of the outside world in minutes rather than months. Corporate interests, large mining companies and cattle syndicates, began to swallow up the small, independent operators. The frontier was being integrated into the modern world, fenced off with barbed wire and regulated by distant governments. The era of the lone explorer was ending, replaced by the era of the industrial laborer. Yet, despite the hardship, the dirt, and the danger, there was a profound beauty that stayed with those who lived there. As the sun begins to set in your mind, imagine the sky turning into a canvas of deep purples and burning oranges. Without the light pollution of the modern world, the stars emerge with a brilliance that is almost overwhelming. The Milky Way stretches across the sky like a river of silver light, so bright it casts soft shadows on the ground. This was the one luxury the frontier provided, a direct, unfiltered connection to the cosmos.